Okay, we are now open. So, good morning, everybody. My name is Paul Herrera. I'm the Government Affairs Director with the Inland Gateway Association of Realtors. We have with us today a great panel of speakers with Congressman Ken Calvert. This is co-hosted by the Inland Gateway Association of Realtors and the Lake Elsinore Valley Chamber of Commerce. We have here Kim Cousins representing the Chamber of Commerce. He's the Executive Director. We also have Vincent McCoy from the Small Business Development Center, who will be available for some of the more complex questions that may come up as you're navigating your way through assistance from SBA and other sources. We welcome all your questions, anything that you want to send our way. This session is being recorded, and we will be providing the recording, making it available to the members of both the organizations and to the public at large. So once again, thanks everyone for being here. I see it's updating every few seconds with more participants. But I want to go ahead and get us going and kick over the welcoming duties to our realtor who's on the Zoom call, Steve Manos, who's also a council member in Lake Elsinore, and to Kim Cousins from the Lake Elsinore Valley Chamber of Commerce. Gentlemen, please take it away.
Very good. Hey, thank you very much. I genuinely appreciate the opportunity to go ahead and participate with this as a former president of the Inland Valleys Association of Realtors and a realtor. We've definitely been paying very close attention and definitely been impacted by the coronavirus pandemic here. I want to go ahead and just take a quick moment to go ahead and welcome our esteemed Congressman Ken Calvert, who's been very active in making sure that things at the federal level are moving in the right direction. Also, Kim Cousins is on the call here, as well as Vincent McCoy. Kim Cousins is our very own chamber president here in the city of Lake Elsinore, and Vincent McCoy is the Inland Empire Small Business Development Center representative. Thank you all for joining us. Kim, did you have anything to add?
I sure do. Good morning, all. And again, a great thanks to Congressman Calvert. This is a tremendously trying time, and he's massively consumed. So the fact that he's able to spend some time with us is greatly appreciated. The Chamber of Commerce has been working actively to get out and communicate and assist our members over this period of time in making sure that they're applying for EIDL and PPP programs. And we've had some great success with our members of being able to get funded there. So that's the great news. Also, just so you know, if you have other recommendations, we are moving forward with a task force, which I'm a member of, for Riverside County Board of Supervisors, to apprise them of ways to reopen the economy in Riverside County. So we're looking for a variance from the governor, and we're working diligently with that with 2-hour Zoom calls 3 days a week, to develop a series of programs and silos and industries with recommendations on how we can get back to work and get this economy moving forward. With that, we're going to move over to the most important part of the program. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kim. I'd like to introduce now our keynote speakers this morning, Congressman Ken Calvert, representing the 42nd Congressional District. Congressman Calvert, take it away, please.
Well, good morning. I appreciate being able to talk to everybody on these Zoom calls. I mean, I guess it's the new normal. It seems lately, but I'm tired of that normal. I'm looking forward to getting back to a new world, our new world of getting in touch with one another. This COVID-19 pandemic has been devastating, not just to our health, but and our healthcare systems, but also to our economy. And this is going to have an effect for a while. And I'd like to tell you that we're going to have a V-shaped recovery very quick. I hope so. But as my old dad used to say, hope is not a planning option. So we got a plan on some tough times, but we're going to get through it. And I hope that we can do this as quickly as possible. As you know, Congress has taken unprecedented action. We have appropriated trillions of dollars, literally. And between opening up the Fed window and putting money out on the street, you know, as one of my friends said, flood the zone, create liquidity and cash to get us through in the short term. We put $16 billion of our dollars into strategic national stockpile to make sure our states and localities have the PPEs and the personal protection equipment, the ventilators. I think we've got through that peak, but I'm still hearing a little bit of folks that need more. But I think that we've leveled out this crisis, at least at this point. The private sector is stepping up to the plate. Seems like every day we hear about a new therapeutic that's coming up, or how they're doing on this vaccines and this new program that we call Operation Warp Drive. What we're going to do here is to take the top 5 candidates, and we're going to go ahead and make 300 million doses for each 5 of these candidates. And whatever of those work after the second phase testing, we'll be in a position to get that vaccine out, we hope, in January or the first quarter of next year, which would be monumental. I mean, that has never been done before. So if we can do that, that'll give a lot of hope and bring more certainty to the markets. And that's what we need, because I know we've injected $2.2 trillion in direct cash. We got this PPP program. We've extended it again. We're getting out a lot of loans. I'm sure that Vincent's going to be answering all those questions about that. The SBA has done a great job. They've been under a lot of stress, I know, and I appreciate everything that they've been doing because it's important. Over 4 million loans have been processed. And I want to congratulate the banks out there and the credit unions and the rest that are doing yeoman work in getting these loans out. There's some banks that are better than others, and I'm sure Vincent's aware of that. But we appreciate getting this money out there to these small businesses, especially. A lot of these loans are $50,000, $70,000. The average is $76,000. So these are small loans, and it's extremely important because we all know the small business people are what really run this economy. So we want to make sure that we get them back on their feet. But saying all that, we need to reopen this economy. I mean, we can only print so much money at the end of the day. And so I'm hoping that working with the governor, that we can open this economy up safely, common sense, social distancing, all that. But we need to start opening the economy and putting people back to work. The people who've done their job, we flattened the curve for the hospitals won't get overwhelmed. We've built up excess capacity within our healthcare systems. We have significant ICU beds available if there's a reinsurgence of this virus. Americans have shown they've done a great job. We have to do our job now. And that means we need to help open this economy and put people back to work. There's a lot of depression going on. I hear it every single day from people in these small businesses, many of which will never open again. There's a lot of, as we know, a lot of marginal businesses that just barely make it from day to day. Well, this pushed them over the edge, and it's a real terrible thing. And we need to help these people get back on their feet and get back into business. So I'm looking forward to doing that. But anyway, I'm looking forward to answering any questions. And thank you for doing this. And there's just one message to everybody out there. We're going to get through this, and we're going to start opening this economy again. And we're going to get at it. So I appreciate everybody's hard work.
Thank you, Congressman. And I think it's an important note. I know people are mourning loved ones in some cases. We're also starting to mourn dreams and aspirations of entrepreneurs and even things that they hoped to accomplish right now. And that's been such a sad thing. I want to move. Sorry.
No doubt about it. I mean, I'm not taking away the heroes of this are the healthcare workers and the people working day to day in the markets and everything that they do. And they got us through this. We're at the top of the curve. It's going to get better from this point forward. I want everybody to understand that's listening. This is going to get better. It's not getting worse. And we're going to make sure that we don't go back into a bad situation. So I want to thank everybody that's got us through this. I can continue to help us. I mourn everyone that we've lost, but we also have an opportunity to get our economy and, like you say, the hopes, and dreams, and aspirations of people back on track.
Thank you, sir. Our next speaker is Vincent McCoy from the Inland Empire Small Business Development Center. Vincent, can you give us an update on how SBA is working through this at the time?
And it has been a phenomenal effort to get as many loans processed as have been processed, not just in this state, but nationally. And so where we are right now is you still have the two main programs, which are the Economic Injury Disaster Loan and the Paycheck Protection Program. What we're seeing right now is that the PPP, everyone makes it easier for people to remember, is that we're seeing people get results. We are seeing people get the funding. The question for many people now that we're answering is in the shift in tone: how do I ensure that I'm able to reopen, bring my employees back, and spend those dollars so that the forgiveness portion is maintained? So that's one of the things that the Small Business Development Center we're spending a lot of time with now, is helping people understand how they receive this funding, how they spend it in the appropriate way so that the money is forgiven. With regard to the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, the latest iteration of that is now that it is capped at $150,000, and it is now restricted to agricultural businesses, which were excluded previously. The SBA is currently processing everyone who is in the queue. So they're looking at all the people who applied before a couple of weeks ago, and they're processing those loans. And we're starting to see people say that they're getting those. So the key right now for, I think, for the small businesses are two things. One is, how do I open up my door so that I'm able to spend these either the loan or the grant fund? And then two, how do I ensure that I'm using the right protocols so that I don't get in any trouble down the road? So as part of that, what we're advising people is set up a separate bank account to handle and set up a separate general ledger so that you make sure all the transactions under the PPP or under the Economic Injury Disaster Loan are in those accounts, so that you don't have to go and fish around in your books to figure out where those dollars are. So it's really important that that these companies are prepared to receive the money and can spend it appropriately. Just as it was when they applied for the funding, what was most important and what got companies through faster is that they had good financial records. So on the other side of this, what we are going to emphasize to businesses is that preparation is key. Make sure that you've got good financial records. Make sure you have a disaster recovery plan. Make sure that no matter what the disaster is, you're ready. And so those are the companies that will survive this, and those are the companies that on the other side will thrive. And that's what I'd like to report. Other than that, we as an SBDC, we looked at our numbers this morning, and as a network, we have exceeded our goals for last year entirely. In the last, from March 1st until today, we've helped people get $44 million worth of funding under the disaster program, another $14 million in other programs. So our phones have been ringing and we're working remotely, but the impact that we've been able to have through the disaster assistance programs has been significant, and we expect it to continue on the other side. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Vincent. I think we can start moving on to some of the questions. I've gotten a couple in the Q&A, there's a couple in the chat, and there were a couple that were sent before. So let me start. I don't know if this will be for you, Vincent, or for Congressman Calvert. We saw reports that there's still money left in the PPP program authorization from this last round. Is it enough for new applications or just to deal with the queue from the previous round?
This might be better. We're burning through the cash pretty quickly. I know that. I think the last I saw, I think we burned through almost 200 billion of the additional funds. And so, Vince, is there any more news on that?
Nothing new. That you're right. I think that the number is about 280 billion, somewhere in that range, that has already been allocated to businesses. out of that additional amount, which was, I think, 361 billion. So that doesn't leave a lot more to be spent. And so they're basically trying to catch up to all those who are out there. And of course, on the EIDL, they're only doing catch up pretty much. So I don't know if there's going to be more funding, but right now, my expectation is that we will exhaust all the allocated funds.
You know, just want to jump in and mention that the county just recently announced a COVID-19 small business assistance program of roughly about, well, there's $2 amounts. There's one that maxes out about $15,000 per loan, another one that maxes out at $30,000 per loan. And there's various guidelines that are associated with each of those programs. I think it's a great program that they've put together. Folks can go ahead and you can refer to it as the AMPAC Business Capital, and you can go ahead and contact them at 909-915-1706 or email info@ampac.com and get more details about that program.
If I could add anything, if people have any question about how to make that application, we've been partnering with AMPAC for a number of years and with Riverside County. So if they get stuck or they need help, we can also help them.
Oh, that's good news.
There's a question here. Kim, you might be familiar with some of this. Are you guys keeping track of some of the private sector grants that are being offered? Like Facebook had one, there were a few others that were being offered for small business?
Yeah, yes, we are. And as everything else, it seems like they've all been gobbled up. So we're waiting for affirmation that there'll be a second round of funding that's coming forward. The other thing that we're working on is to develop some resources for businesses for startups. So we're going to actually have some opportunities, possibly with Riverside County, where we'll have pooled resources on PPE and things of that nature, else posters, and then just booklets on how they're going to prepare their workforce and prepare their work environment to welcome back those employees. So we're trying to create a whole tool set that will be coming out in the next couple of weeks.
Thanks, Kim. There's a question here. I don't know if somebody here will be able to address it because it has to do with state law. There's a recent order from the governor's office that said that workers' compensation would cover any employee who came down with COVID, and the presumption would be that they acquired it at work and therefore would be eligible for workers' compensation benefits. That has some impacts on employers. Anybody feel comfortable wading into that one?
Well, I'll tell you from my perspective, where I'm at, I used to own a number of small businesses and restaurants. And, a lot of that on your workers' comp is your experience modification factor.
Yep.
You don't count on a pandemic as part of the experience modification factor. So if this is going to significantly increase your workers' comp rate on top of everything else that you're experiencing, this could be, devastating to small businesses. So I hope the governor thought about that before he went in that. I don't know the details of this yet, but as soon as I heard that, whoa, I wonder if they really thought this out. But I'd be interested in what you're hearing, Kim, from your businesses and your chamber.
Yeah, Congressman Calvert, I agree. The first thing we heard back from 3 of the businesses that they will not reopen if that's true. It's too much of a liability for them. There are, hundreds and hundreds of employees, and they just need, less than a dozen of those to knock them out of a viability relative to be able to pencil out those costs with workers' comp. So we've got some pressure back from the Cal Chamber and back to the governor's office to rethink that, put some caps on it, add a little more common sense to it, because otherwise we're going to have several businesses that will fail just on that measure.
The problem you got here, unfortunately, you get some people in government never been in business, and they think this is a great idea to get more money out there. We'll just put this workers' comp requirement in. And they don't understand the insurance business and what that does actuarially to that business, because they have to get, these companies aren't doing this for free. They got to get their money back. So
think
this can significantly raise the workers' comp rate for these businesses, would put them over the edge, put them over the top. I mean, that'll be it.
I might argue that it's a little more insidious than that. He knows exactly what he's doing. The goal is to go ahead and lump a lot of the burden of taking care of people that have been impacted by the virus and the lack of preparation for it onto the backs of businesses and small businesses, especially. That's I mean, you can only go back to the well so many times. You know, businesses are impacted heavily. It's one of the worst business climates in the entire United States. If you want to get political about it, I mean, the bottom line is that it's not a very good solution to the problem.
By the way, Tony Capitelli, the CEO of TIGAR, has been able to join us. Tony, did you want to say a few words of welcome to the audience here?
Sure. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it, Congressman Calvert. We appreciate your presence here. Thank you. Yeah, I apologize I was late. We had a hearing scheduled, but in terms of where we're at in the real estate industry, things are actually moving along pretty well. Into demand had a huge drop, but it seems to have bottomed out a bit, and now we're seeing some escalating in activity, which is good news. Our members have been really good about working virtually, virtual showings, you name it, and we're starting to see those transactions pick up. So as an association, our role has been to help our members with just that, how to get back in business safely and virtually, and so far so good. We just hope that things stay that way. So thanks for having us.
Hey, Tony, real quick, I understand that there's a new COVID-19 document required as part of a closing of escrow on a property. So have you been witness to that new document?
So we actually have 9 new documents. One in particular is most important, and that is to essentially protect against liability from your clients if they contract COVID while doing a showing and whatnot. But we have 9 different documents to cover all different parts of the transaction. We don't suspect that we'll be adding any more, but we will be tweaking those as we move along. Our state association has been fantastic about making sure that the transaction itself is secure from any civil liability. Now, we don't know what that civil liability is yet. Obviously, everything is unknown, but I think we're doing our best to prepare.
And one of the new documents that I saw was specific to basically the mortgage companies and indemnifying them that as you enter in the transaction, you're not counting on the government to bail you out or looking at a forbearance on your loan as soon as you close escrow. So have you seen that document too?
Yeah. Well, and mortgage forbearances have been an issue across the board. You know, the primary way we've been dealing with that is to give people the information on what it means to actually get a forbearance on your mortgage. We haven't seen as much of that in the front of the transaction, more in refis. But yeah, absolutely. We're trying to get that information out there, because what a forbearance typically means is you either have to pay it at the end of those 2 or 3 months, or you've got to tack it on to the end of the transaction, more interest. So we're trying to make sure everybody has that information.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
On that subject, I might point out on the commercial real estate side of it, a lot of tenants aren't paying rent. You know, restaurants, nail shops, dentists, barber shops, obviously are in economic distress, and so they're not paying their rent. They're hoping to get the PPP loan and then be able to pay rent. And I hope they do that, because if they don't pay rent, then the banks that are holding the commercial paper on these loans are not going to be the equity partners of these business people that own these the real estate holding. So then we end up with a credit crisis on top of a health crisis. So that's a real concern we have right now, is to make sure that, and I'm sure Vincent's aware of this, is when people get these PPP loans, it's not just for payroll, it's also to make sure they make their rent payments to stabilize the real estate market. Because if we have a slide in the commercial real estate business, that could cost a tremendous amount to the economy.
Yeah, thank you for that.
April 27th, 3 point, As of April 27th, roughly 3.7 million Americans were in forbearance, according to bankrate.com. So yeah, it's a significant issue.
So we have a question from one of our realtor members. As a small family business or real estate agent, we don't qualify for traditional small business loans or PPP. We need the money to pay office bills, rent, etc. What are our options to survive? Now, I know they can apply for pandemic unemployment assistance, but when it comes to paying office rents when they're not a corporate entity, they're working as themselves. Vincent, are they locked out of PPP and EIDL? Vincent,
Mike, yes, let me try that one. They are not locked out, and I guess my first question would be, did they actually apply? Because one of the things we found is that we received some complaints from businesses that they aren't eligible, but when we ask them if they've applied, one of the things the SBA has emphasized is that while the applications may be, the regulations governing applications took time to roll out, what they're emphasizing to people is to apply and get an answer, and rather than frankly sit on the sidelines and wait to see what everyone else is getting. So if they did apply and they were told they weren't eligible, that's one thing. But if they did not apply, I don't know, I would want to know why they didn't apply. But yes, as Congressman pointed out, the PPP can also be used to cover your fixed expenses, such as your rent, your utility, the cost of employee benefits as long as they're a group. So if they, and that's what I really want to dig down on this one rather than tell them that it's not possible. The other option is if they were looking at the state side, the state through the iBank program does have disaster relief lending available. But again, it is a loan, but the terms are favorable and intended to get more money into the hands of small businesses. And the last piece is what we've already mentioned is that the county of Riverside has some programs. One is CDBG backed and the other was not CDBG backed to give microloans to businesses in the county.
thanks, Vincent. Another question here. We are a nonprofit that's been in the community for more than 30 years. Now, unfortunately, we are one of those small operations that has been pushed to the edge. Question, how can we access the SBA loan when the bank we've done business with for decades isn't an approved outlet for the available funds? And actually, the bank that they cite is one I've heard from a couple of members as well. What should they do, Vincent?
They can, and I can type in here, there is an SBA link where you can search for lenders that will accept non-existing customers for the PPP program. So yeah, I know that I've heard from a number of people that Provident isn't a participating bank, but there are others that will do it, and then there are credit unions that might do it. So I'll send a link with the SBA website where you can search for lenders who do it. And frankly, earlier this morning, we had a gentleman talk about he had to apply to 5 different lenders and finally found one out of state. That's unfortunate, but that story has come up a number of times that people had to shop their loans to find someone who would and who could and would accept their loan application.
You know, on that point, you know, I don't want to name names here. Well, maybe I will. Some of the larger banks have not been let's say, treating some of the smaller businesses well. You know, we have a situation where people have an account, say at Wells Fargo, and they have had a banking relationship, and if they're a very small business and they ask for a PPP loan, and they're not processing that loan as quickly as they would like, or maybe not at all. And so because they don't have a banking relationship with someone else, and because the banks are trying to take care of their customers first, it puts them in a very difficult situation. So I'm hearing a lot about that. I'm sure Vincent is too, but some of the larger banks, unfortunately, don't get to the smaller businesses as quickly as we'd like to see.
Now, Congressman Calvert, I certainly agree with that. And one of the things, unfortunately, that we've learned through this pandemic is our business members really need to go out and develop those business banking relationships with a commercial lender. And so unfortunately, some of them are just starting that process, but you should be able to pick up the phone and talk to somebody at your bank. And if that's not the situation you're in now, then you really need to start shopping and shop very fast so that you actually have a name and a number that you can count on.
I agree. I think people are going to learn from this. It's good to have a banking relationship.
Yes, sir.
Congressman Calvert, one of the questions coming in, it's probably coming down your way. When this started, you saw investors start to walk away from some of the loans that small business owners in particular count on for their mortgages, and dry up of credit for mortgage credit for some of those properties. It's been harder to qualify. Credit standards have tightened up again because of lack of available funds from banks concerned that loans will go into forbearance very quickly. Any thoughts about how we can get some of that lending side back on track?
Well, this isn't going to last forever. I know the banks are focused right now on these PPP loans because they have so many applications in. It's taking up all their employees. They're working Saturdays and Sundays, at least the ones that are really working hard at it. But once this is over, they're not making any money on these loans. And I think Vincent will tell you that. I mean, they got some processing fees and so forth, but they're going to have to get back to their regular business. And so I'm hopeful that we can help these banks, be able to make these loans that are going to be necessary, and they're going to be, good loans that they get higher interest rates on, and that they can do well with. And so that's why we got to get this economy open again, get these businesses making money, where we can create liquidity in the business community. If we don't do that, we got real trouble.
And you mentioned what's going to happen over on the commercial real estate side, which is another challenge altogether.
And that's a big deal. I mean, people I know sometimes focus on the mortgage side of things, on home mortgages, but the commercial paper side of this is a huge amount of money. We don't know what's going to happen in the office markets, for instance. What's going to happen down there? What's going to happen now with industrial buildings and all the rest of it? It'll all settle out. But the longer this goes on, the more uncertainty, and markets don't like uncertainty. So that's why we got to get this economy opened up as soon as it's responsible to do so. And I'm thinking it's right about now that we need to start opening up this economy responsibly.
Congressman, what do you think are the priorities for Congress with whatever the next legislation is, whether it's more relief or whether it's something else in terms of liability for small business? What should come next?
Well, they're talking about another bill that I'm sure there'll be a bill somewhere down the road. But right now, we're going to put a pause on this. We're going to see where this money that we have out there right now, where it takes us. And I'm sure by June, July, we'll be looking at potentially another bill. In the meantime, we got to pass our appropriation bills. Like I'm the ranking Republican on defense appropriations, and we have the men and women out serving around the world and right here in the United States through this pandemic. The National Guard, the reserves, we've been doing a fantastic job. The Corps of Engineers, I give them a huge amount of credit, what they've done to get up these temporary hospitals. But we have to get an appropriation bill done, and to make sure they have certainty in their funding. Same thing with Labor H, which funds all the health services in the United States, and the rest of the appropriation bills. So we can't do it remotely. We have to get back to Washington, D.C. So Speaker Pelosi, if you're listening, we need to get back next week. And, we should have been back, in my mind, this week. But the Senate is in session, and we need to be there also, and the sooner the better.
Thank you, Congressman. We had a question regarding special grants for veterans. I don't know if there is a grant program that supports veterans. Part of the question also mentioned if there's a grant program in Riverside. It was mentioned earlier that Riverside County does have a small business support grant program. I don't have details, but I'm sure we can get that out to everyone who's part of this discussion. Is anyone aware of any kind of support for veteran-owned businesses during this time?
If any business, veterans business, they can certainly call my district office at 951-277-0042, and we'll try to get you the answer that you want. And so I would call, with the system we're at right now, you call in, somebody will call you right back. So we'll help you out.
Okay, thank you for that. And Maurice, you got that number? The question asked her. He had a second question. It's probably going to come in a phone call to you, Mr. Calvert. Congressman.
Okay.
Got a question here for Tony, actually. Let me unmute you there, Tony. You got it?
Right.
What is the association, what are you guys working on to try to support realtor members, who are a little different kind of business than some of your local businesses for restaurants and other things?
Sure. Yeah. So, as I mentioned before, we're doing our best to get everybody up and running virtually. It's, really been kind of a boots on the ground effort with staff, because, especially a lot of our older members are not necessarily familiar with this technology. So a lot of it is surrounded our own Janessa Mercer and the rest of our staff in terms of one-on-one trainings. And so we're trying to get agents up and running individually as they call. Our phones are accessible. Everybody's working from home, but all the calls still go there, and we can help our agents one-on-one with that. In terms of broadly, we've been upping our virtual education. So we have all the education options that we did before, including our Momentum program, which is kind of our basics course program. It's all up and running virtually. And in fact, we're going to be having more. And so we're hoping just to get in front of our agents as much as possible, getting them educated, getting them information, and then helping them get used to the technology to be able to run their business in this environment. Because the reality is, even if, down the road, even if they are allowed to do more than they're doing now, a lot of these techniques may last. Some of the agents are starting to like some of the technology, virtual showings. Now, obviously, we'll have to be as strict in the future, hopefully. But I think that we might be seeing sort of an industry transformation, which, you don't want to ever say that there's good things that come out of, horrible, tragic events like a pandemic, but this may be one of them. And I think that other industries are probably seeing the same thing.
I want to add one thing there. TIGAR on the website, tigar.org or igrealtors.org or .com, I can't remember.
It's igrealtors.org or tigar.org, either one works.
They have really good resources there, which are frankly helpful to anybody in the public that's interested in the same information. CAR on a microsite they put up called carcovidupdates.org, that's carcovidupdates.org, has great information, webinars, including a step-by-step guide on how to apply for pandemic unemployment assistance with PDFs on the websites, how to fill in the boxes. There's discussions on, because the things that apply to realtors and brokerages often apply to just about any other kind of business. And all of that, which would normally be under some kind of member login, is available to anybody to come and view. So I'd like to promote those out there for anyone to take advantage of and get benefit from.
Yeah, thanks, Paul. Yeah, so it's tigar.org/coronavirus is our specific page, and we try to keep it regularly updated. It's got its own unique menu bar, so you can find some useful tabs there. In terms of, what I would say to those out there, if you're not in real estate, but, you're looking to buy or you're looking to sell, we can do it. Our agents can do it. So I know it's not ideal, not necessarily, being able to go to a house with your entire family and see it, but I think you'll be happy with the technology, and our agents are ready. So if you're out there and you're waiting, do it now. Let's get that market moving again.
Hey, Kim, do you want to, I'm sure there are resources from the Chamber of Commerce that people can take advantage of, or do you want to plug any of those?
Yeah, there are. We certainly have these types of Zoom webinars, and we have more coming, but we're also in the process of getting ready to launch a new program called Propel. And so there'll be a press release next week for that. And it's just wrapped around providing services and guidance to our business community, especially in preparation for a reopening. You know, the world has shifted. We're going to have a lot of sanitation requirements. You know, obviously we have this workers' comp thing kind of laying over the top of us. We certainly have PPE that's going to be required, and there's going to be a whole host of things by industry that are going to require people to prepare their workplace or their retail place in order to invite those workers or guests back into there. And so we're going to have a tool set for them, and that will be coming out next week.
Thanks. Vincent, what's the SBA site that people should go check out if they need to have the questions answered?
Yeah, so I actually just replied and sent the SBA TPP search link. So that should be in the Q&A.
I'm not seeing it. Hopefully someone else is.
I think I answered the question.
Oh, okay.
So it's in the question. The other thing is I didn't give is our phone number if anyone needs help, whether it just be any question you have about disaster programs or any questions you have about operating a successful business, they can call us at 951-781-2345. And I just want to remind people that the SBDC is funded by the SBA, as well as we get matching funds from banks and other financial institutions from Riverside County and from cities throughout the region. And as such, we deliver our counseling and training services free to existing and startup small businesses. So if people are thinking, they're worried about paying fees, they never have to worry about paying fees to us. And my other thing is to caution people, we've heard reports of people being asked to pay fees for the PPP application, to pay fees for doing any of these disaster programs. You should not ever have to pay a fee to do this process. So if you got questions, give us a call and we'll help.
Thanks, Vincent. Congressman Calvert, what are the biggest areas of need that you're getting from your constituents and businesses? Like, what are you taking back to DC with you from the community?
Well, there's a long list. I think that that the smaller businesses that, as I mentioned earlier, that are somewhat, that kind of go from day to day. The urgency that they have to reopen, I think you're seeing that around the country, and people now opening irregardless of what the government tells them. I think you're going to see that growing phenomenon. And you mentioned that to the governor last week. People's frustrations and their the choices they have are difficult. Either they go into bankruptcy or the loss of their business, or they may potentially violate what is the law right now and sheltering in place and not opening their business. And so I think every day that this goes by, you're going to see more and more of that happening. So if I take a message back to DC, but I know the individual governors are very responsible. We need to responsibly open this economy as quickly as we can, or it's going to come from the bottom up. The people out there are making decisions on their own, and to survive. It's a real tragedy that's going on right now, and I'm sure every one of you people are talking to you that are undergoing this situation. So that's where we're at.
Thank you. Kim, you had a question?
Yeah, Congressman Calvert, I'm going to put on my other hat as the trustee for Riverside County Office of Education, who had a 9-hour Zoom meeting on Wednesday. And obviously the big question on the table for the education community is funding, and obviously we have resources that dry up in property tax and sales tax and things. So we're going to have this collision course coming in the fall, certainly if we're allowed to open up. So that was one piece of it. The other is, Just a follow up to sort of the constitutional question. You know, it seems like there's a lot of rumblings in the states with an overreach, and it looks like Barr is putting and forecasting out some questions to them relative to their overreach. So have you had some of those conversations up in the Capitol?
Well, as the Attorney General said, and I think said properly, the pandemic is not an excuse to vacate the Constitution of the United States. The Constitution is important, and the rights of individuals are important. The right to assemble, the right to express your point of view, and the right to live your life as free as possible. And when government has to have a very good reason to stop you from being able to have those basic rights, which are guaranteed in the United States Constitution. And so people get worried about, the tracing issue, and they get nervous about rumors about picking people up and forcibly holding them in, a lot of this is baloney. It's not going to happen. The tracing part probably is going to happen. But you have to be careful about this thing. I mean, we live in a free society. We're not China where this started. We're not going to take away people's freedoms and unilaterally, and we have to be careful about how we handle this.
Thank you, sir. We had a question. I see Vincent answered it, but I just wanted to say it out loud. Lazaro Morales asked whether you can apply to more than one bank for the PPP loans, since not all banks are funding. Vincent McCoy responded, yes, you can apply with more than one financial institution. Vincent, I believe the rest of the question, the answer is make sure you don't accept it from more than one financial institution for the same purpose, but you can make applications and see who responds first and is able to work with you.
Yeah, Paul, I would certainly echo those sentiments. We've had some of our businesses apply to 2 or 3 financial institutions. And it really is up to that financial institution of bundling your financial information in your application to the SBA. And the first one wins, so they got an approval back affirming that the SBA has approved their loan from one of those 3, and then they just followed through the application, and then they dropped off the application on the other 2 financial institution, which is very important too. Yes, do not take it more than one time. But some financial institutions are a little smarter, sharper, quicker in getting through the application process.
Okay, we're getting into the wrap-up mode. So I wanted to end it with Congressman Calvert. Congressman, this is a very challenging time for folks in your district and frankly across the country. And I wanted to see what you had as a closing message to the business community, to the communities that make up the district.
Sure. Well, I just say, like, this pandemic didn't start here in the United States, but it's going to end here. And we have the spirit and the capability in this country to get this economy back on track. And I have every confidence, working with the president and working with all our governors. This is one of the times that we set aside our political differences and say, look, it's important that we get this country back on track. So again, I want to thank all of you for what you're doing and what you're going to continue to do to make sure that we get America back to where it was a few months ago. And we want to do it as soon as possible. Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you, Congressman. Thank you to all our panelists. We will have this recording up so that others can view it. Please feel free to share widely. I think it was great information. Thanks to everyone who joined us. Have a great day.
Thank you, and stay safe.
Thank you.
Stay safe. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, Congressman. Appreciate it. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.